Here's a problem for practicing what you've learned so far in this module. Examine the relationship between GDP and life expectancy in 2007. We're talking about GDP and not GDP per capita here. To find GDP, you can multiply population and GDP per capita in a country's data, because GDP per capita is of course GDP per person. With Python and pandas, you can write data.gdp per capita times data.population to compute GDP, assuming that the data variable contains the country's data as a data frame. Make a scatter plot with GDP and life expectancy and try using both raw GDP and the log of GDP just like we did in the last video. As usual, if you want to practice on your own, pause the video right here and come back when you're done. And here's an example solution. First, import pandas, pyplot, and numpy, as well as the country's data. Let's find the data for 2007 with data square brackets data.year equals 2007. And let's find GDP by multiplying GDP per capita with population. You can do this with data 2007.gdp per capita times data 2007.population. These are going to be fairly large numbers, so let's divide them by 10 to the power of 9, which is 1 billion, so we can find GDP in billions. Let's put this in GDP in billions. Make a scatter plot with this with plt.scatter, GDP in billions, and data 2007.life expectancy, and use 5 for the point size, and show it with plt.show. It looks like countries with higher GDP tend to have higher life expectancy as well, but the effect is not so clear. So let's try using a log scale with plt.scatter, np.log10, GDP in billions, data 2007.life expectancy. The positive correlation is a little bit more clear here. Let's compare this with the scatter plot we made in the last video with the log of GDP per capita. So here, instead of using log 10 of GDP, I'm using log 10 of GDP per capita. It seems like the correlation is more clear with GDP per capita than with GDP. Let's see if we can confirm this by comparing the correlations of life expectancy with the log of GDP as well as the log of GDP per capita. As you can see, the log of GDP per capita is more highly correlated with life expectancy than the log of total GDP for each country. This makes sense if you think about it, because if a country has a large population, each person might be poor, but the GDP of that country could be high. And it's probably more important that each person be well off for him or her to have a long, healthy life than his or her country be wealthy in total. You've reached the end of this module, and in the next module, we're going to cover bar charts.